Lin Chia-lung, the Delegation Chairman of Taiwan, paid a visit to Warsaw today to attend the Poland-Taiwan Economic Cooperation Forum. Big tech is the main driver of future bilateral economic ties. AI, 5G, microchips, and consumer electronics are just some of the areas that Taiwan might want to make greater investments in here in Poland. But could such close economic ties with Taipei cause a backlash on the Chinese mainland? And now joining us here on World News Tonight to discuss the possibilities is Matej Šimalčík, Executive Director of the Central European Institute of Asian Studies. Hello, and thank you very much for joining us on World News Tonight.
Good evening.
Now, I'd like to start off by asking, does the fact that a Taiwanese delegation chairman, top Taiwanese official, came to Poland, that some type of diplomatic offensive has begun, perhaps tightening ties with Warsaw or the region? What do you think this signals?
Actually, I think this is a continuation of a trend that we've seen emerge since 2020, when Taiwan started to be way more active in the Central European region compared to the previous years. Of course, the drivers of those interactions were especially the Czech Republic and Lithuania, which really had the most kind of visible activity with regards to Taiwan. But other countries in the region were also rather active. Slovakia during the time was quite an active player, and to some extent also Poland, which made some inroads with Taiwan during that time in both in economic cooperation but also in political cooperation. Now we see that, of course, this wave is continuing. In one way, there are some changes because the cooperation with Slovakia is maybe not as active anymore, but instead we see way more activity now coming out in Taiwan's relations with countries like Poland, for example. And as I said, this is really a continuation of something that started already in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, which was sort of the first impetus for this relationship. But now, as we see that more and more countries in the region are disillusioned with China due to its support to Russia, there are many more openings for Taiwan to cooperate with other countries in the region, and Poland is one of the countries that stands to potentially benefit from this type of cooperation.
Well, when we looked back to the somewhat recent example of Lithuania, Lithuania supports the Taiwanese cause. It even opened a trade office or de facto embassy. In return, Taiwan has promised investments in Lithuania. Has this been successful so far? Did it pay off? And did it overtake the cost-benefit analysis with making China upset?
Right. I mean, the case of Lithuania is really a complex one, and it's not maybe necessarily the best case on which to judge whether it's possible to have relations with Taiwan that are beneficial and what kind of coercion that country might face. In case of Lithuania, we've seen really very bold and very visible steps toward establishing the relationship with Taiwan. Some of those really happening outside of the traditional way how these relations are managed. So I would not say that Lithuania is the best example for making this type of comparison between cooperating with China and with Taiwan. Within Europe and even within the Central European region, we've seen many countries that have managed to sort of do the both things, right? And Slovakia here may be an example during the 2020-2023 period, because it was in many ways equally active with regards to building ties with Taiwan compared to Lithuania and Czech Republic without facing such backlash from China. So I wouldn't say that by cooperating with Taiwanese, Poland is necessarily inviting a big backlash from the Chinese side. For what we are seeing today, for example, this is something that has long been done in Europe, that this type of interactions with Taiwanese politicians, which are happening against the backdrop of economic cooperation, are not necessarily as sensitive. in Chinese views. Of course, China would have much bigger offense if we've seen interaction, especially public interactions with Polish political representatives. That would be a very different case. But in this type of case where we see interaction with Taiwan on the framework of economic cooperation and within the work of a chamber of commerce, for example, which in a sense is a private actor, that is not so sensitive.
So Poland will likely pursue the economic relations and benefits and stay away from the politics.
That is, of course, one of the scenarios that can happen. But of course, some level of political cooperation is actually already happening between Poland and Taiwan. Actually, Poland was the first European country that has concluded an extradition treaty with Taiwan back in 2019, which was a very big deal, actually, as it was. As this is a very, on one hand, very sensitive political topic related to sovereignty and the justice system, and on the other hand, it's also very valuable for the Taiwanese in terms of safeguarding Taiwanese citizens against potential extraditions to China, which are now prohibited by the European Court of Human Rights. In any case, I think there will be both levels of interactions happening, not just the economic one, also the political one, especially as we see that Taiwan is one of the players being active in support to Ukraine. It has been working with bordering countries of Ukraine, like Poland, like Romania, in delivering aid to Ukraine, either via the NGOs working in those countries, but also via intergovernmental ties. So I think both ways of interactions are really something that's on the table currently. But of course, Poland might be calculating on how to approach this from a maybe bit broader perspective, not just from the perspective of the direct link with Taiwan, but also embedding it into the overall approach it has to China, where currently Poland is facing some pressure over its votes regarding EU tariffs, which has nothing to do with Taiwan, of course, but this is something that may be a factor in how Poland will be thinking about cooperation with Taiwan down the line. In any case, when it comes to this type of economic cooperation, there are definitely ways how this can be strengthened, because for now, Poland has been actually one of the less active countries in Central Europe in terms of economic cooperation with Taiwan. So there is a big gap that can be filled in various sectors, and it's starting already. We have some investments in Poland already in the automotive sector, in food processing sector. Now there is an opportunity for Poland to participate in some of the more high-tech industries together with Taiwan, especially as the Taiwanese TSMC has decided to locate its primary European factory in Dresden, which means that the supply chain for the Dresden factory will most likely have a bit of a decentralized nature and will include companies also in the bordering countries, with Poland being one of the potential candidates here.
Okay, well, we'll have to see where this blossoming economic relationship takes us. Matej Šimalčík, Executive Director at the Central European Institute of Asian Studies, thank you very much for joining us tonight on World News.
Thanks for having me.
And that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.